What's going on, folks? Welcome to episode 11 of Sustainable Sedition Radio, a podcast that's dedicated to helping you build a life that thrives in changing times. I'm a couple days late this week because my life is indeed going through a very big change right now. My son was just born on Friday, actually. I'm recording this on Tuesday. I don't know if I'll be able to air it today, but day 5, new baby in the house. We've got 3 of them running around. And, man, it has been an adventure, as always, with kids, man. Me and my lady are exhausted, but we're pushing through. We're having fun, and we're stoked that he's here and he's healthy, and we're just doing the thing. So I'm just getting all fired up on round 3 of being a dad. And so that's why this week I'm going to talk about raising adults, teaching your kids what they'll never learn in school. Now, before we dig into our topic, I just want to give you guys a little bit of an update, what's going on. So we just had our boy. And man, first, before I say anything else, I want to give the biggest shout out in the entire world to my wife, man. She delivered our son naturally, no drugs, just handled it, right? Like an absolute badass warrior. She's a beast. We woke up around 5 in the morning on Friday, and she was just, bam, like crazy strong contractions right off the bat. There was very little ramp up, and she just got woken up by all of a sudden crazy strong contractions. We, live an hour and a half away from the hospital. So we were like, all right, no screwing around. We had our bags packed, and we've had, go bags ready for the past couple of weeks because it could have happened at any time. And so, we got all our gear together, hopped in the car, and shot straight to the hospital. And took us an hour and a half to get there. We got in, and she was about 50% of the way, like dilated and all that. And then we got there around, I want to say like 6:45. Within that window between 6:45 to 8:36, when our son was born, she went from halfway dilated to 100% and baby was there. So, I mean, that is like an hour and a half. That is just an insanely short period of time to go through all the stages of labor and then give birth. So she absolutely knocked it out of the park. It was crazy. It was the hardest, most heavy metal thing I've ever seen in my life. And that's saying something because Bjorn, our firstborn son's birth was really similar, really fast, really hardcore, but this like even faster, So that's it. We stayed overnight in the hospital and got up in the next morning, got all of our stuff, came back up here, and here we are, just riding it out and adjusting to 3 little rugrats now. So I'm sitting here, right, holding this new little life in my hands, watching my 1.5-year-old boy just wreak havoc on everything in sight, because he's just at that age where he's so smart. He's just running around the house and just taking everything apart, and you can't keep up with him. There's like no damage control. He's just into stuff. He's climbing on counters, pulling stuff out of cupboards, reaching into the toilet, like everything. We just got to be super vigilant and just, try to mitigate the damage and danger as much as humanly possible. And the reality is he's getting into everything. And then, I'm seeing my almost 6-year-old daughter becoming this strong, kind, loving little lady, who's so good with her little brothers. And she's so excited to see this new baby. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm the guy that gets to show these boys what a man is. And I'm the guy who shows my daughter what to expect from men. And it's my job, it's my duty to raise all 3 of them into responsible, functioning adults. Anyone can have kids, it ain't that hard. But being a father, right? Being a mother, that's a whole different animal. It's a whole different level of investment and presence and effort. your kids are going to mimic your behavior, right? Because mimicry is the first stage of learning anything. You see somebody do something and you get an idea and then you practice and you do it. And that over time, practice makes perfect. But the first initial step is that you're imitating what you see. So you can't just, tell your kids what a fully functional, healthy adult looks like. You've got to become one. You've got to show them by your example how to conduct themselves and be a human being. You're their primary role model. You're the first example that they have. You're the most important example that they have. You're there with them every day. They spend the most time with you. You have to become the type of person that you'd be proud to see them mimicking. Everything you do is going to become their baseline understanding of how things are done and what's normal and acceptable. So that how you react to stress, how you treat your spouse, how you work, how you structure your routines and your habits, how you rest, how you lead. That's the real burden of becoming a father or becoming a mother. We lead by example and we model the behavior that makes us effective and successful in our lives and what we're trying to do. So we're not raising children, right? We're raising responsible adults who have the ability to function effectively out in the world. We're not raising grown children. We're raising the people who will create a better world for their own kids. And a lot of guys, myself included, we all hit moments where, we fall short, we get frustrated, we screw things up, we doubt ourselves, we feel guilty, and we feel ashamed for, missing the mark, right? Because the truth is, parenting kicks your ass. It strips you down. It takes everything that you thought you knew about life and it crushes it under real life pressure. It takes courage. It takes respect for yourself and for others, for life. It takes massive amounts of self-discipline. It takes even greater amounts of emotional regulation, patience, perseverance, innovation, right? You got to be creative. Communication with your spouse, with your kids, confidence, and responsibility. Tremendous amounts of responsibility. Somebody's whole life. Sending a whole human being out into the world and making sure that they're equipped with the right tools to be successful. Even with all that, you're still going to screw the shit up sometimes. There's no handbook, There's nothing written down in stone that's going to walk you through every single challenge that being a parent's going to throw at you. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing 100% of the time. It's going to throw stuff at you that you just have no idea how to handle. And when that happens, we fall back on what our own parents modeled to us, right? We're attempting to problem solve using what we know. And a lot of us resort to the, more hard-handed, authoritarian style of parenting. We rely on harsh discipline, on coercive punishment, and withholding love as leverage to get our kids to, comply with us and do what we're asking them to do. Other parents swing the opposite direction. They're lazy, sadly. They're apathetic. They're too busy to properly discipline their kids. Or they're way too permissive and let their kids get away with shit that they shouldn't in an effort to avoid being the bad guy. So they remove all the obstacles, all the risk, all the failure, and all the opportunities for their kids to learn by themselves. And they cripple their kids' ability to grow by doing that. And by handing them everything that they want without teaching them to earn it. Or by being so overprotective that they never let them fall down. So the kid never learns how to pick himself up. Now, maybe our parents were physically or mentally and emotionally absent too. They didn't teach us what they should have. And we had to figure it out for ourselves in adulthood. We're raising kids with no point of reference and kind of just making it up as we go. When you do that, it's a lot easier to outsource your children's education. So that's what we end up doing. And it's easy to justify doing that. We're busy. It takes time and effort to teach our kids ourselves. It sucks sometimes, but we have to embrace the suck of it. Because if we don't, and we rely 100% on schools to prepare our kids for life, we're setting them up for failure. The education system is nothing more than a government indoctrination camp. It doesn't teach real world readiness or skills. It teaches obedience. It's a factory model. It was built in the 1800s, and it was designed to produce compliant, punctual, obedient workers, not critically thinking problem solvers. They don't teach how to think, they just teach you what to think. They don't teach you how to problem solve. They don't teach you how to manage your emotions. They don't teach you how to survive. They don't teach you how to manage your money. They don't teach you how to take accountability for your actions, how to feed yourself, how to build, grow, or repair anything that's useful. And it's not broken. The education system's not broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to produce compliant employees. If you don't instill within your kids the clarity to decide their own direction in life, someone else will decide that for them. There's an old saying that goes, if you send your children to Caesar for their education, don't be surprised when they return to you as Romans. If you send your kid to be trained by the state, they're going to come back knowing only the things that make them a useful battery for the state's machinery. They'll come out with a head full of disjointed, half-memorized information, most of which is not practical knowledge that they can actually apply in real life. In school, they have all these different subjects, right? Math, science, history, arts, all of that. But they don't connect any of those subjects together and show how each one is relevant to the other to create this holistic view and understanding of what life is and how life works and how to be an effective person. So they don't teach them that stuff, right? So none of the information that they're being fed feels relevant to them. Now, I know that not everyone has the ability or the desire to pull their kids out of government schools and start homeschooling them, right? But we can all start teaching them the mindset that's going to immunize them to the indoctrination and the propaganda that's being shoved down their throats in school, and maybe help them connect some of the dots of those disjointed subjects so they actually, develop a passion for learning and understand why it's important to learn and to understand and to read and to know how to do math and to understand biology. It's all so important, but they don't show you in a satisfactory way why it's important in school. So if we're lucky, we only have 18 years or so to prepare them for the day where they can throw us the finger, walk out the front door, and all the influence that we once had over them is gone, right? Before that point, it is our duty as parents to prepare them for a world that is much less forgiving than we are. We need to teach them critical thinking so that they have a built-in bullshit detector. You got to explain to them how things work so they start thinking that way. You got to teach them how to question everything, even you. Teach them to always ask why. When they ask you why, don't just give them the, because I said so. That's lazy, and it trains blind obedience. When they ask you why, give them a real reason. Take an extra minute to do so and explain it to them. And if the reason is you just don't feel like it or you're tired or whatever, then, maybe that's something that you need to work on, because that's not how you're going to maintain a positive, solid relationship with your kids where they're going to want to listen to you. You got to teach them how to think, not what to think. Teach them logic. Teach them fallacies, pattern recognition, the law of cause and effect. Point out to them, the logical fallacies in people's arguments. Break down the manipulation in a drug commercial or something the next time that you're watching TV together. Build this mindset into them through everything that you guys do together. Next, you got to teach them emotional regulation and self-discipline. You've got to give them the freedom to screw up, to get hurt, to take accountability for their actions and understand consequences, to understand why and how they screwed up, and teach them the discipline to try again until they get it right. Sure, of course you can give them pointers, but you got to model to them how to handle frustration and failure, and model to them how to rectify things, how to make things right. If you freak out and you start yelling every time you get upset, you're shooting yourself in the foot. They're going to think that that's how they should react to stress. Instead, as the leader of the family, you need to show them that when you screw up, it's your fault, and that you do what needs to be done to fix it, period. Next, you got to teach them real world skills. Teach by living it and involving them in what you're doing. Teach them to garden. They'll learn patience, stewardship, working for a reward, and how to feed themselves all in one place. Take them hunting, fishing, and that teaches them how to provide and be resourceful, and how to take a life with respect, how to foster a meaningful connection with nature and the natural world, and life and death. Teach them how to cook, that teaches them chemistry, health, and the art of, just being intentional. Teach them how to clean up their own room, for God's sakes, and to be organized. Teach them how to fix things. That's going to teach them self-confidence and problem solving. Give them a job in the house, Give them chores. Have them, at the very least, clean their dish at the end of the night after dinner. Have them feed the dog. If they fill the toilet bowl with a whole roll of toilet paper, don't fix it for them. Hand them a plunger and show them how to use it. Have them come with you to change your oil, Bring them out with you to help, build a new toy shelf for their room. Do stuff with them. Show them how things work. Let them negotiate with you and praise them for doing it. And does that mean that you are going to change your answer every time that you've said no because they're trying to negotiate? No, that's not how life works. But teach them how to make a deal. Negotiation is going to teach them real economics. Next is moral sovereignty. We got to start teaching our kids the non-aggression principle early. The non-aggression principle means you don't hurt people, you don't take their stuff, and you don't mess with their life unless you're stopping them from doing that to you or to someone else. That's it. Simple. Consent, boundaries, honesty. Make these like household values and model them. Model them well. Teach them how to be a friend, how to treat others, how to stand up for others, and how to stand up for themselves. Show them how to own up to their mistakes and admit when they screw up. Then repair it. Teach them how to hold a boundary without getting into a fight. Teach them how to de-escalate a conflict using words. And, if necessary, how to physically defend themselves while still showing restraint and not getting lost in their emotions. Whether you raise them with, a Bible, the Quran, the Tao, or you just teach them the natural law of cause and effect, give them a code that they know not to break when no one's watching. Teach them how to say no when the whole crowd says yes to something that goes against their morals. To be an individual, to have their own moral compass, and to actually stick to it when it matters. Because one day it will, and there's not going to be a parent holding them accountable. You need to learn how to make them be self-accountable today, starting now, by modeling it. Next, you want to teach them physical competence, right? And you don't need to turn your kids into mini Arnold Schwarzeneggers, but don't let them be a couch potato that, sits and eats chips and plays video games all the time. Kids need to be active, man. They learn through doing and through activity. Take them hiking, take them rock climbing, get them involved in some kind of sport, whether that's martial arts or archery, throwing, lifting, running. It's going to give them like that basic primal animal confidence that they can move their body, they can be agile. They're going to develop physical strength and self-confidence as a result. Model self-discipline to them by, exercising. Let them see you do it. Invite them to do it with you. They mouth off to your wife, you make them drop and do some push-ups until failure instead of yelling at them. Keep them healthy and strong. Teach them how to climb trees, how to build forts, how to use tools, how to fall down and get their asses back up. Let them get scratched and build up some calluses. When they learn that they can handle physical discomfort, they stop being afraid of the world. Next, digital immunity. Teach them early. This is going to be more and more and more important as time goes on and as we have technology increasingly involved in our everyday tasks. Which means everywhere now, right? You never go anywhere without your phone. You use it for everything. So we got to teach them early to use technology, not to be used by it. Don't just hand them an iPad and clock out for the day. Teach them how to use the iPad, right? If you're going to give them a screen at all, teach them how to use it to learn about something that they're interested in. Show them that it's a tool, not just like this thing for entertainment. Limit their screen time, and don't just ban screens. Teach them why the screen is engineered to hijack their minds. And replace time on screens with real skill building, with family activities, with going outside, with getting your hands dirty, learning stuff, enjoying stuff, being present, right? Next, you got to teach them financial literacy. This is a tough one. You got to teach them how money actually works, which means you need to learn how money actually works. You got to teach them the value comes from what's earned, not what you're entitled to. You got to encourage them to be entrepreneurial, teach them how to negotiate. Have them do chores for rewards. Make them earn what they're asking for. They want a new toy, they work for it. Encourage them to start little micro businesses, have them sell eggs, have them sell herbs, have them, do crafts, arts and crafts and sell them, whether it's, knife making or sewing leather, whatever. Teach them these skills. Have them go knock on the neighbor's door and offer to mow the lawn for $20. How to trade value for value, how to solve someone's problem and charge fair for it. Next, we got to teach them humility and mutual teaching. This one's for us as parents. We got to let our kids teach us too. We don't know everything. Oftentimes, they've got something to teach you about patience, right? About curiosity, about how to slow the F down, and teach effectively. You really have, know something well when you can break it down in a way that a 6-year-old can understand. We got to build up our knowledge to that level where we can do that to properly teach our kids. And that means we got to get on our shit and we got to learn really well what we're talking about. And sometimes they're going to show us our greatest weaknesses. Take that feedback. It's not a failure. It's feedback. Always tell them when you screw up. Let them see you make it right and take accountability for your actions and for the consequences of your actions. Teach them that it's more important to be effective and to try again and to, fail until something works. It's more important to be effective than it is to be right. And take that failure as an opportunity to learn, man. Make sure that they learn that lesson through watching you fail and learning from your mistakes. And lastly, you got to build wins for these guys. Give them real, earned victories. Let them struggle to finish a project. Let them trade something and make their first $5. Let them grow some peas and eat them. And tell them, tell them loudly, clearly, intentionally, directly, eye to eye, how goddamn proud of them you are. We don't tell our kids that enough. We have to. We have to start giving them, praise when they're putting in effort. Of course you praise them when they win, but when you're not always going to win. In life, you try and you fail a lot more than you try and you win. right? So we got to praise not just the victories, but the effort itself. That's how you build their confidence from the inside out, because they know that they can try again. They know that they have what it takes to put in the effort and to fail and to still be able to dig deep and pull out more energy to put out more effort. We got to teach this stuff to our kids, man. The biggest thing in all this, right, is learning all of these skills yourself. Now, maybe your parents didn't teach you this stuff, and it's not even necessarily their fault, because this stuff has been slowly bred out of us for generations now. We've become a culture that outsources everything from food to security to education to our morality. And when that happens, we become obedient because we become completely dependent. That's exactly how the system's like it. So we're not just raising kids, we're raising a lineage. If we don't reclaim these skills and teach them to our kids, we run the risk of losing these skills permanently. These skills that have taken thousands of years to learn and to be passed on. We're dangerously close to losing them. We're dangerously close to the next generation growing up, knowing how to consume, but not how to live in reality and do things. We run the risk of having that next generation continuously outsource more and more of everything to these corruptible power structures. It's easy to check out. I don't mean physically walking out the door. I mean coming home from work, burnt out, and flipping on the TV for them while you drink beer and you scroll on your phone, right? You're in the same room, but you're not in the same life. Don't be the guy that they talk about and say, Dad was there, but he was never really there. I can't imagine a deeper hell than missing that opportunity to be there with your kids because you were too stressed out or you were too tired or whatever. It's short, man. It goes quick. Don't be that guy. And if you found yourself mentally checking out, here's good news. You can turn it around right now, today. Turn this episode off. You can finish it later if you want. Take out your earbuds and turn towards your kids. Become the person that you would be proud to see your kids become. Not someday, right now. If you don't, the system will be more than happy to raise obedient, confused, dependent little batteries in your place, just like it's designed to do. This episode is, just as much for me as it is for you, because I need that reminder. We've got a newborn baby boy who's been glued to mom's chest from the second that he was born. He's brand new. He depends on us for everything, and we got to be there for him, especially her. And then we've got, our 1.5-year-old boy who, tears through the house like a goddamn tornado. I mean, literally, dude, he's climbing up on the counters, pulling stuff out of the, just everything on the table. It's so stressful, but it's beautiful at the same time. And then we've got, an extremely intelligent, almost 6-year-old girl whose endless curiosity needs to be fed. She needs stimulation. She needs more complex tasks and projects and information to chew on. I mean, the goddamn house right now looks like Hiroshima after they dropped the goddamn bomb on it. It really does. And, it is just pure, unbridled chaos. Screaming, crying, laughing, shit diapers, messes, cooking, naps, all of it. It's so easy to get completely overwhelmed and to reach for anything that takes us out of the moment. But we know that this mayhem is just a chapter. It felt like yesterday, literally, when my daughter was the size of our newborn. It goes so fast. I know that's cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. It's repeated because it's true. We only have this one shot to get it right with our kids. I need to keep showing up as a father, as a leader, and as a man who's not done learning. I need to remind myself every single day to turn towards my kids, to always be learning, to always be teaching, to always be becoming someone that they can respect enough to listen to, not because I demand it, but because I clearly demonstrate what it looks like to be effective and how to live well. Don't just tell them, show them. Invite them into your world. Let them see what real looks like. One day, your kids are going to be teenagers, right? And they're going to think that they know way more about everything than you. And that's fine. That's natural. That's part of it. But what's not okay is if they actually do know more than you. Because at some point, you stopped learning. You stopped growing. You stopped developing yourself as a provider, as a leader, and as a teacher, and as someone that should be looked up to, that can be looked up to, because you have value to offer. Don't just raise your kids, man. Raise yourself. Otherwise, you're going to raise copies of your own unresolved mess. Get your shit together. That is what it means to be a parent. Show them what it means to be an adult, not a grown child in a bigger body. Teach them how to surpass you by letting them witness you surpass yourself every single day. You've got to become an expert at becoming an expert on things you know nothing about. That's what learning is. One day you're going to be old and they're going to be running the world that you leave behind. Don't raise them to adapt to systems that don't care about them and profit from their dependence. Raise them so that those systems can't even contain them. Teach them how to think, how to lead, and how to create something new. Turn towards your kids, man. Become the person you want them to become. Live it. And bring them with you. That's how we raise adults. The kind who will raise more adults and build a world that's worth inheriting. All right. That's a wrap on episode 11 of Sustainable Sedition Radio, guys. That's about all the time I got today. I took this little window while my boy is taking a nap, and my parents are here visiting from New York, so they're hanging out with my daughter, and so I'm going to get back in there and get back to it. But as always, man, if you like what we're doing here and you enjoy the show, this episode helped you, think a little bit differently, step up as a parent, or reconnect with your mission, do me a favor, pass it on. Share it with one parent who needs to hear it, with one friend who's trying to raise adults in a society full of grown children. You can listen directly from the site at sustainablesedition.com, or you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want weekly updates, head to the website and subscribe to the Dispatch. And get on our email list, right? Where we're going to have announcements every week, and you're never going to miss an episode. Things are going to be a little bit more than hectic over here for the next little bit, but I'm going to keep showing up with a new episode for you guys each week, so stay tuned. As always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your time, and until next week, keep on learning, keep on leading, keep on raising your kids into adults who know how to build a life that thrives in changing times.